Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into the mud-soaked boots of a World War II machine gunner. Not the Hollywood version, the real one, where carrying the weapon was a full-body punishment, and every time you fired it, someone was aiming for you. We're not dropping into battle, we're staying behind the barrel, with the ones who were too important to run and too slow to leave behind. This isn't a story about glory. It's about weight, and what happens when you carry something heavy for too long. Before we begin, feel free to like the video or subscribe, but only if slow, human stories like this help you wind down. And if you're listening from somewhere quiet, let me know where. I always read the comments. Now ease back, maybe dim the lights, and let's begin. Receiver over your shoulder, tripod under your arm. The weight shifts like it's testing your patience. Not sharp, just heavy in all the wrong places. No balance, no mercy, just steel and obligation. The mud starts clinging the second your boots hit the earth. It doesn't care who you are, doesn't care what you've done. It only wants to slow you down. Like it's mad you showed up to its birthday uninvited. You march anyway. The machine gun isn't noble, isn't elegant. It's a furnace, a tantrum, a promise that if you keep feeding it, maybe, just maybe, it won't get you killed. Sometimes you talk to it, not out loud, just in your head. Short words, bargains, threats, possibly a breakup letter. Hands move without asking permission. Feed tray, barrel latch, tripod clamps. All of it muscle memory, ritual, therapy, if therapy came with a recoil spring and permanent hearing damage. Around you, footsteps, breath, and muttering that fades into static. Someone's trying to light a cigarette with fingers that forgot how to be fingers. Someone else is praying or swearing, same difference this far from home. You don't join them, you've got your own prayer, and it weighs 31 pounds. The weapon never apologizes, never flinches, never hesitates. Unlike Corporal Stokes, who once dove face first into a latrine at the first sign of artillery, you're not brave, you're routine, and that's the closest thing to safety you've got. It's not even yours, technically. The gun belongs to the war, the unit, the cause. But you've earned custody. You know the angles, the quirks, the mood swings. You know how far it will push before it punishes you. Once, during a lull, a lieutenant wandered over and tried to crack a joke about you naming it. You didn't laugh, didn't even look up, just kept cleaning. He left after that. Gun's name is Greta, not that he deserves to know. The receiver's casing has a dent in the side. Not enough to matter, but enough to make you notice. You can't remember when it got there. Feels like it's always been part of the thing. Like a scar on a face you see more than your own. In the back of your rations pouch, you carry a strip of cloth soaked in gun oil. It smells worse than the trench, but it keeps the parts moving. It keeps things alive. It also clears your sinuses better than any medic. You spend hours on your knees, not praying, just maintaining. When you wipe carbon off the bolt, it feels like you're scraping time itself. At night, when there's time to rest, you don't. Not fully. Not really. You sit with your back against the dugout wall, fingers curled around the tripod like it might run off in the dark. You listen to the breathing of the others, light, nervous, broken by coughs. Your own is slower, measured, annoyed that someone keeps snoring like they swallowed an accordion. The first time you fired it, you felt your bones rattle. Now, when it kicks, you barely notice. That's what they don't tell you about machine guns. It's not the fire that breaks you. It's the silence after. Air hangs thick. Even the trees hold still. No birds, no rustle. Just the weight of everything leaning in. Your jaw tenses. You've been here before. So has your lunch, which is now considering a reverse exit. The gun is already in place. It's always in place. Barrel straight. belts folded like angry snakes. The assistant crouched low beside you, silent, watching, looking like a kid who just knocked over something expensive and is waiting for the fallout. To your left, the ammo bearer stacks boxes like sandbags. He doesn't speak, doesn't need to. The way he keeps sighing says plenty. You smell the frost before you see it. Frozen dirt cracking just enough to remind you that warmth is a memory, a fairy tale, a myth passed down by dry socks. Then the sound starts, high-pitched, falling fast, incoming. No warning, no countdown, just whiplash. Surprise, you're popular. Dirt jumps, splinters fly. Something hot nicks your cheek. You don't flinch, mostly because your face is too numb to register new trauma. Hands are already moving, glove to grip, sight to shoulder, belt to feed. Noise rolls over you like a wave, bullets, boots, bark being shredded somewhere too close. The assistant is fast, faster than he was last week. Maybe fear teaches better than training. Or maybe he just really hates the idea of becoming a helmet with legs. You count bursts without thinking. Short, short, long. Pause. Adjust. Fire. The barrel hisses. The gun bucks. The rhythm starts to set in. Not music, not mechanical. More like breathing through clenched teeth. With tinnitus. Inhale. Fire. Exhale. Feed. You taste copper. Maybe your lip. Maybe something else. Possibly regret. Still breathing. Still upright. Still feeding the furnace. The belt kicks against your wrist like it's trying to run. It doesn't get to. You're the boss. Kind of. A runner dives into the hole behind you, shouts something about flanking fire. You nod, barely. Keep shooting. It'll sort itself out or it won't. You're not a tour guide. The brush ahead is moving, shapes darting. One too close. You fire without thinking. It drops. Might have been the enemy. Might have been Tuesday. No celebration. No time. You catch your breath for half a second, just long enough to swap belts and regret your life choices. Then it starts again. The cycle, the furnace, the noise. No name you remember. Maybe he told you once. Maybe you nodded. Maybe it was a name like Doug, and your brain decided it didn't deserve space. Doesn't matter now. He's always on your right. Belt across his shoulder, spare barrel strapped tight. Knees in the dirt, waiting like a nervous intern about to ruin the copier. Fingers twitch between reloads. Breath fogs the inside of his helmet. He blinks too much. Might just be allergies. Might be terror. Tomato. But he doesn't freeze. The first time you saw him move, really move, was when the belt snagged mid-fire. He fixed it before you even grunted. Fast hands. Clean instincts, possibly powered by pure panic. He's scared. That's fine. Scared means he's still here. When the gun kicks too hard, he braces the tripod with both palms. When the barrel smokes, he's already reaching for the spare. Like a well-trained dog, but with more existential dread. You never speak. Words slow things down. Words mean there's time. There isn't. Sometimes he glances at you like he's waiting for approval. You never give it. Not out loud. But when the gun runs smooth, you let it ride 2 seconds longer than necessary. That's enough. He'll notice. And if he makes it to next week, he'll understand what that meant. He's got a patch on his coat that doesn't belong there. Different color. Wrong unit. Probably picked it up off a crate or a dead man. You don't ask. You don't care. Could have been part of a Halloween costume for all you know. There's something odd in the way he breathes when it's quiet, like he's practicing something, remembering a rhythm, or reciting Shakespeare backwards to stay sane. When the firing stops, he doesn't relax. He just prepares. New belts, new oil, new nerves, same anxiety. One night, during a lull, you watched him trace the grooves on the spare barrel like it was scripture. or like it owed him money. You didn't say a word. There's a good chance he won't make it to next week. But if he does, he'll make someone else look better. Someone else will survive because he didn't blink. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember his name. You don't sleep. Not in any way that counts. You hover, back pressed to cold earth, eyes open more than they should be. The smell of your socks could qualify as a war crime, but taking them off would mean freezing your toes into brittle little souvenirs. So you leave them on, like a sock-shaped death wish. You burrow a little deeper into the foxhole. It's about 3 inches wider than your shoulders, and filled with just enough water to remind you that God has a sense of humor. Everything is damp. Your coat, your pack, your soul. The guy next to you is snoring. Not just snoring, gargling gravel with enthusiasm. You consider nudging him. Then remember he loaned you half a chocolate bar last week and decide he gets a pass. Your assistant is curled up like a cat in a helmet, boots sticking out. One still has a bit of yesterday's mud glued to the heel, like a badge of failure. You reach for Greta. She's never far. Not because you like her, but because when things go wrong, she's the only one who speaks your language. Loudly, violently, with no punctuation. The hole you're in smells like damp bread and old regrets. You once read that foxes dig better dens than this. You'd like to meet one. Offer it a shovel. Ask for tips. Overhead, the sky plays dumb. Stars flicker like they're watching. Judging. You wish one would fall and hit headquarters. You check the belt again. It's already loaded, already aligned. But you check anyway. Ritual beats sleep. In the distance, a cough. Then nothing. You pull your helmet down low, rest your fingers on the tripod, and wait. You don't dig in because you're scared. You dig in because it's what you do. Because being buried just deep enough to shoot back is the only kind of optimism left. You wake up because someone is stepping on your leg. Not gently, not apologetically, just with the resigned force of a man late to a war he didn't want to attend. Orders came down. Move forward. Again, because apparently no one read the memo about your last near-death experience. You groan, silently, out of respect for tradition. Greta gets hauled onto your shoulder like a misbehaving toddler. You grunt. She doesn't care. She never does. Your assistant is awake now, bleary-eyed, hair doing something avant-garde. He nods at you like he dreamt of this moment and is equally disappointed. You march, again, through mud, past holes, over yesterday's chaos. There's a barn up ahead, or what used to be one. Now it's more of a collection of splinters with ambition. You're told to set up inside. You step over broken beams and what you sincerely hope was a chicken once. Greta gets placed on a table that collapses out of protest. You find a more stable wall and settle in. Sandbags appear like magic, courtesy of the grumbling infantry who believe you're both a savior and a liability. You test your sightline, too wide, too open, perfect. The assistant starts unloading belts. You nod. This is your new home. For now. Probably until it explodes. You stare through the gun like it's a telescope and the enemy is just another constellation. Welcome to the new front line. Same fear, different wallpaper. It starts before dawn. Of course it does. The first shell hits somewhere behind you, loud enough to wake the dead, or at least everyone pretending to be asleep. Then comes the second, closer, ruder. You grab your helmet like it's going to negotiate with physics. Greta's already loaded. She was born ready. The assistant dives to the floor like he's in a musical. You respect the enthusiasm. You listen. The incoming whistles, the outgoing thuds, the crackle of things you hope aren't important catching fire. Someone screams. Someone else laughs. Same man. Different minute. You wait. Not because you want to, but because right now, the only thing worse than waiting is moving. Then, suddenly, silence. You blink. A mistake. Because the next noise isn't a shell. It's boots. Many. Fast. Heavy. You pull the trigger. Greta responds like a diva. Loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. The assistant feeds belts like his hands are possessed. The barrel starts to glow. You think about marshmallows, then decide you're not quite that far gone. Yet. Rounds hit the wall, the ceiling. Your confidence. Return fire is sloppy. You count bursts anyway. It's comforting. Like counting sheep that want you dead. The barn shakes. Part of the roof gives up and falls in, landing on something that squeals. You pray it was a goat. You don't need another moral injury today. The belt runs dry. You swap it like a magician with PTSD. Then, finally, it stops. Smoke. Dust. Nothing. You exhale. Check your assistant. He's wide-eyed, breathing, covered in splinters and a little too proud of it. You grin. Just a little. Then remember you still haven't had breakfast, and probably never will. After the firefight, you expect more noise. Yelling, debriefs, maybe applause. Instead, there's soup. A private appears with a dented pot and ladle, looking like a medieval squire with PTSD. He offers a scoop of something brownish. Could be stew. Could be regret. You take it anyway. You eat on your helmet, literally. It's upside down in your lap, and you're using it as a bowl. The assistant follows your lead, says nothing, slurps like it's gourmet. You envy his standards. You glance at Greta. She's cooling now, barrel propped up like it's had a long day too. Which it has. If she had a mouth, she'd probably be smoking a cigarette and demanding a raise. You lean back against a beam. It creaks in a way that promises betrayal. You lean slightly less. There's a rustle outside. Another runner. This one hands you a note. Scribbled coordinates. Sloppy handwriting. Smudged with something that looks like jam. You hope it's jam. You nod. Then crumple the paper. Feed it to the fire like it offended your ancestors. More marching. Not yet. But soon. Always soon. The trade is simple. Your spine, your hearing, and your trust in humanity. In exchange for a few hours of not being shot at. Fair. Maybe. But it's all non-refundable. Someone hands you a cigarette. You don't smoke, but you light it anyway. Just for the heat. Just to remember what warm felt like. The assistant is fiddling with the tripod, even though there's no need. Just habit. Or maybe he's hiding from the silence. The silence is the loudest thing in the room now. No gunfire. No shelling. Just the slow crackle of a tired fire. And a few low murmurs of guys who are pretending this isn't their life. You catch your reflection in a broken bit of mirror, someone nailed to a beam. You look like a raccoon that lost a custody battle. Dirt, shadows, and that 1,000-yard look they don't teach you in basic. You hear snoring. Somewhere in the corner, someone's out cold, wrapped in a blanket that might have once been a curtain. You envy that too. You shift your weight, and a piece of wood jabs your back. Of course it does. Comfort is for civilians. Outside, the wind kicks up. A shutter bangs, and no one moves. You all flinch internally, but nobody gives the wind the satisfaction. Eventually, you close your eyes. Not to sleep, just to blink a little longer. Just to pretend you're somewhere else for 4 seconds. Then you hear it. Boots. Marching orders. A groan rises like a chorus of unpaid interns. You stand. Greta gets strapped in again. Your assistant curses softly. The road calls. The trade continues. Night again. Or maybe morning. The sky doesn't clarify. Just looms. You're marching. Again, of course. Greta's back where she always is. Your shoulder. Your spine's least favorite accessory. The ground is less mud now, more soup. Every step makes a noise like wet bread being chewed too aggressively. Ahead, a road. Maybe. More of a suggestion, really. But it leads somewhere, and that's apparently enough. You pass a field full of cows that have clearly seen things. One looks at you like it's reconsidering pacifism. Your assistant trips twice. Recovers both times. You don't comment. His dignity's already taken enough hits. Someone starts humming behind you. A tune from home, you think. You forget the words, but not the feeling. That part still lingers. Like a bruise. You march until your boots feel like they've merged with your bones. At one point, you wonder what life would have been like without Greta. Probably less ringing in your ears. Fewer people mistaking you for the loudest thing in Europe. You pause to piss in a ditch. The ditch offers no privacy, but plenty of judgment. The officer leading this little parade keeps pointing at landmarks like he's giving a tour of disappointment. Somewhere along the path, a truck lies overturned, burned out, blackened, still smoking from something. You don't ask. Someone picks up a boot from the wreckage. It's empty. That doesn't mean much. Marching in wet socks becomes a universal truth. Even the guy from Brooklyn stops complaining. That's how you know morale is circling the drain. A crow watches from a tree like it's taking notes for an afterlife documentary. You find yourself counting steps, not for distance, just to pass the time. 137, 138, 139. You lose track around 260 when your foot finds a rock pretending to be harmless. At one point, you hallucinate a diner. Smells like coffee. Turns out it's just diesel and someone's last hope. Finally, a clearing. You're told to dig in again. You sigh. Not because you're surprised, but because sighing is cheaper than therapy. Digging a foxhole in frozen ground is a spiritual experience, by which you mean it makes you question the existence of mercy. You stab at the dirt with your entrenching tool. It stabs back. The two of you are now in a toxic relationship. Your assistant is beside you, also digging. He's humming again, louder this time. You assume it's a coping mechanism and not a declaration of war. After an hour, you have something that might legally qualify as a whole. Greta gets set up first, naturally. She demands attention. You line up ammo boxes, stack them like grim Lego. The view is terrible. An open slope, bare trees, distant shadows. Ideal for existential dread. You collapse into the hole. The walls are shallow, the mud clings, and a root has claimed your left kidney's personal space. Still better than last week. Night falls. You check the gun. Then check it again. Then realize you've been staring at the same feed tray for 10 minutes. There's a rustle behind you. Just wind or death. Hard to say anymore. You eat something that started as bread. It now resembles drywall. Your assistant asks if you think anyone's winning. You pretend not to hear. Then comes the drizzle. Cold. Relentless. The kind that soaks through every seam in your soul. You roll to your side and feel your ribs complain. You adjust. The mud adjusts with you. A rat skitters across the edge of the hole. You salute it. It's seen more tours than you. Far off, you hear artillery. Not close, not far. Just enough to promise you'll need a new eardrum by Tuesday. The wind shifts, carries the smell of smoke. Maybe fire. Maybe breakfast. You don't get either. Your assistant starts whittling something with his bayonet. Probably a coping mechanism. Or a squirrel trap. You don't ask. Eventually, you sleep. A little. Between cramps and existential crises. The hole holds you like a bad hug. Damp, reluctant, permanent. Just a place to aim from. And maybe, if the dirt's in a good mood, a place to survive in. You wait. That's the job now. Not firing, not moving. Just waiting. It's a special kind of purgatory. Too quiet to trust, too long to ignore. The cold creeps in like guilt, one joint at a time. You stretch your legs, one of them cramps. You massage it with the kind of tenderness usually reserved for loved ones or expensive cheese. Greta rests on her bipod like an old dog, muzzle forward, eyes on the horizon. If she had a tail, it'd be twitching. Your assistant is stacking rocks again, not for defense, just to feel like he's doing something that isn't thinking. You stare into the trees. You count them, then recount, just in case one moved. Time stops meaning much. You go by shifts, 2 hours of staring, one of dozing. A meal that may or may not be edible, repeat until disassociation. At some point, a bird lands nearby. A black one. You whisper a deal, fly toward the enemy, and you'll owe it a favor. It stares, then poops, then flies off sideways. You assume that's a no. You think about home, not fondly, just analytically, like a place you read about once in a pamphlet. Your knees ache, your fingers twitch. You've adjusted your belt 47 times today. You sharpen a stick with your bayonet, not because you need a stick, just because it's quieter than screaming. A drop of water falls directly on your eyelid. You consider yelling at the sky, but suspect it would only encourage it. You close your eyes. Just for a second. The second becomes 5, then 10. Then the sergeant walks by and coughs pointedly. You snap back like a kid caught sleeping in class. He leaves. You return to your post. The same view. The same trees. The same everything. The boredom thickens until it feels like a fog. Not dangerous, just heavy. You hear a twig snap. Everything in your body freezes, but Greta doesn't. Her safety's already off. Nothing follows. Maybe a squirrel, maybe a scout, maybe your imagination finally snapping. You don't relax. You just hold tension longer. That's the game now. It starts with a pop, then another, then 20 more. Then the sky turns into a slot machine of fire and shrapnel. You're up. Greta's ready. Your assistant's wide-eyed, but already feeding the belt. The forest ahead vomits, muzzle flashes. Somewhere behind it, men you've never met are trying to erase you from history. You squeeze. Greta barks. The recoil hits like a punch through your bones. You shift. Reposition. Fire again. The belt clinks through your glove, smooth and metallic, feeding the beast. You don't aim, you correct. Fire into the movement, into the flashes, into the shapes trying not to be shapes. Return fire slaps the dirt like angry fists. The log in front of you explodes in splinters. You duck, come back up, and keep the rhythm going. Someone screams. Not you, not your assistant. That's all you check. You fire until the barrel begs for mercy. Smoke pours from the side. The smell of burnt oil and cordite clogs your throat. Reload. Slap the top. Pull the bolt. Keep going. A tree goes down like a drunk. You hope it hits someone who deserved it. Seconds stretch. Time melts. You're only aware of the gun, the belt, and the growing pile of brass. At some point, the return fire dies down, then stops. Silence. But not peace. Never peace. You breathe, then cough, then spit out whatever tried to die in your mouth. Your assistant checks the ammo box. Empty. You both nod like that's fine, like that's normal. Smoke clings to the trees like bad decisions. You scan. You don't stand. Not yet. The opening salvo is done, but the war, still hungry. Afterward, no one cheers. You climb out of the hole. Your knees pop like firecrackers. The ground looks different now, not because of what changed, but because of what didn't. Bodies lie scattered, some curled, some sprawled, some missing pieces you don't want to identify. You step over a helmet, still warm, still humming. A medic crouches nearby, shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. He bandages a leg that no longer needs it. The assistant sits against a tree. His mouth is open. No words. Just that 10-yard stare's older brother. You unhook Greta. She groans in your arms like an overworked engine. You carry her to the tent. The tent smells like sweat and iodine and copper. Inside, men lie on cots, some groaning, some quiet. One laughs. You don't know why. He doesn't either. You clean the gun. Not because it's dirty, but because it's a task. And tasks feel safer than thinking. You wipe down each piece, the bolt, the feed tray, the bipod. You hum something tuneless. It helps. A chaplain passes behind you. He says nothing, just nods. You nod back. No one believes anymore, but it's nice someone tries. You finish. Set Greta aside. You walk outside. The sun's out. You hate it for that. The assistant finally speaks. Says something about rotation. Relief coming. You nod. Then someone jokes about going home. The whole squad laughs. It's not a happy laugh. Just one that keeps your chest from collapsing. You sit down, back against a tree. Close your eyes. The cost? You'll tally it later. Right now, there's soup to pretend to enjoy, and boots that still need drying. They said relief was coming. Technically, they weren't wrong. New faces show up. Fresh uniforms, clean boots, hope in their eyes. Poor bastards. They arrive with questions. What's it like? What should we expect? You give them the same answer the last guy gave you. You'll find out. They settle in. You watch them arrange their gear like it matters. One guy folds his socks. You laugh once, quietly. Then comes the kicker. You're not going back to base. Just repositioning. So much for rotation. You walk. Again. Boots squishing through yesterday's regrets. Greta on your back, already annoyed. The new position is barely better. Same trees. Same mud. Just a few meters that way. Your assistant swears when he sees the new foxhole. It's less a hole, more a suggestion. You both get to digging. The fresh guys dig slower. They haven't learned that haste is the only thing that buys minutes of safety. Someone offers you coffee. You accept. It's lukewarm and tastes like betrayal. You drink it anyway. The day stretches on. Shadows grow long. Someone farts. Nobody laughs. Not because it wasn't funny, just because no one has the energy to spend on reacting. Around mid-afternoon, a sergeant makes the rounds. He talks fast and says little. Something about patrol routes, something about possible artillery, something about someone named Kowalski who didn't make it. No one knew Kowalski. Then the whispers start. Something big is coming. Reinforcements for the other side. Armor. You don't ask how they know. You just check Greta again. Recoil springs clean. Barrels still warm. Belts are packed tight and mean. You scratch your arm and feel mud under your nails. You wonder if that's just how your skin is now. The guy with the socks hums while he sharpens his bayonet. It's cheerful in the worst possible way. Then someone swears they heard tracks. The fresh guys freeze. You roll your neck until it pops. The silence that follows is worse than confirmation. It means it might be true. The relief that isn't has arrived. It starts with a distant growl, low, metallic, like a beast dragging its teeth. Then the ground begins to tremble. A soft vibration at first, then unmistakable. Tanks. You brace, adjust your position. Greta points forward, waiting. The fresh recruits look pale. One mutters something about how this wasn't in the manual. The first shell lands too far. Then the second one lands too close. The third one doesn't land at all. It punches a tree in half like it owed money. You duck instinctively. The earth jumps. Dirt rains from the sky like confetti at a funeral. You return fire, even though you know Greta's not made for armor. Still, you aim for the infantry running alongside. If the tank is the fist, The men are the fingers. Break them, and the fist loses coordination. Bark, clatter, reload, again. A guy to your left screams. You don't look. You can't. The only thing worse than getting hit is watching someone else take your place. The smoke thickens. You cough. The world narrows to a 10-foot view of noise and recoil. Your assistant jams a new belt into place. It rattles. The snap of the bolt sliding forward is one of the few reliable comforts you have left. The tank moves closer. You can feel it now, a pressure in your chest, like someone pressing down with a shovel. Then it happens. The tank stalls. Maybe hit, maybe spooked, maybe divine intervention. Doesn't matter. You reload faster. The infantry pulls back. The tank retreats. The world exhales. You don't cheer. You just change barrels. Someone behind you mutters something about being lucky. You think about correcting them, but decide against it. Let them have it. Let someone believe in luck. After that, nothing. Not quiet, just absence. Like the world hit pause and forgot to resume. No birds, no wind, no orders. You sit, back to Greta, knees pulled up, mud crusted on everything. Your assistant naps beside you, or maybe just closed his eyes to process the last hour. You chew on hardtack. It's like eating a fossil. You try to soften it with coffee. The coffee refuses. The fossil wins. Eventually, someone walks past and mutters, "We held." You nod. Not to him. To the idea. You held. Sure. But you lost something too. Something internal. Hard to name. Harder to get back. The new guys stop asking questions. They stop folding socks. Greta gets cleaned. Your fingers are automatic. Scrub. Wipe. Oil. Repeat. You hum again. You don't remember the tune, just that it came from somewhere with less mud. Maybe a diner. Maybe your mother's kitchen. A medic sits nearby, flicking a lighter open and shut. He's not lighting anything, just listening to the click, click, click. You ask for another belt, just in case. He gives you a look, then shrugs. Night falls. Again, the stars come out. They're too pretty for a place like this. Someone points out a constellation. You don't care which. You just stare at the stars like they might apologize. You close your eyes. Briefly. Tomorrow is another maybe. You hold on to that. Because it's all you've got. Because it's always all you've got. The rain doesn't fall. It seeps. From the sky. From the dirt. From your sleeves. Moisture becomes the air's dominant personality trait. Your boots never dry. Your socks, traitors to all things warm and soft, cling to your feet like damp regrets. Greta rusts faster than you can scrub her clean. Her insides cough when you pull the bolt. You sleep in shifts now. Not because you're ordered to, but because your body runs on fumes and superstition. If you close both eyes, something bad happens. You don't know why. You just know. Trench foot whispers in your toes. Lice throw tiny parties in your seams. You scratch until you bleed, then scratch some more. Food shows up late, cold, and suspicious. The assistant insists it was meatloaf. You believe him, but not happily. Time drags. Days smear together like rain on ink. You count them not by sunrise, but by how long your fingernails have grown, by how often the guy 2 holes down yells in his sleep. Mail comes, a letter from someone who thinks you're still whole. It smells faintly like flowers and detergent. You don't open it yet, not because you don't care, because it still smells like home. You try singing to stay awake. The lyrics fall apart halfway through. Your voice cracks, too dry for music. There's talk of a supply drop. No one believes it. One morning, a crate arrives. It contains rain-soaked socks, cracked biscuits, and a single bar of chocolate that someone mistakes for soap. He uses it. Smells like hope for a minute. You clean Greta. You clean her again. It doesn't matter. The rot sets in anyway. In the weapon, in the trench, in the soul. They move you again. No trucks, just legs. Through mud, through silence. Past empty posts and places where units should be. Should have been. This is the ghost line. Nobody says it, but everyone feels it. This part of the front is held together with sandbags and willpower. Mostly willpower. You pass a burned-out half-track, its frame still warm. No one dares ask what happened. You keep walking. Your new position is higher ground, technically. In reality, it's a hill-shaped puddle, with a trench line carved into it by optimists. The smell here is different, less like sweat, more like rust and waiting. Greta likes the view. You don't. Too open, too visible. The days stretch longer here. Maybe it's the elevation. Maybe it's the ghosts. You meet the remnants of another squad. They don't introduce themselves. You don't ask. They share a fire. One guy offers you a piece of bread. It's hard enough to qualify as a weapon. You eat it anyway. Hospitality matters. That night, artillery sings its ugly lullaby. The hill shakes. You curl tighter. Greta hums beneath your arm like she's dreaming. The next day, a scout doesn't come back. No one says his name. You think they forgot it already. You see your reflection in a rain puddle. You don't recognize the man looking back. He doesn't blink when you do. The ghost line doesn't have battles, just reminders that you're still here, that others aren't. You scratch a tally into the stock, lose count halfway through. They hand you a map. It's wet before you unfold it. The ink runs like it knows something you don't. Patrol. Routine. Check the perimeter. Observe. Report. Don't die. You nod, as if that's a fair deal. The assistant comes with you. You both pretend this isn't a punishment. It's just your turn. Everybody gets one. The woods are too quiet. No birds, no rustling. Just the sound of your steps squelching through soaked earth. Every twig snap echoes like a gunshot. You spot foxholes that don't belong to your side. Too fresh, too neat. You make a mark on the map. The map tears. The assistant pauses. You pause. Both of you breathing through your mouths to keep the noise down. It doesn't help. Everything feels loud. Then you find the clearing. Bodies. Not new, not old. Just left. Enemy uniforms. Faces gone. Equipment scattered like breadcrumbs from a forgotten story. The assistant takes a step back. You take a step forward. Something crunches. Not a twig. A rib. You both freeze. Not in fear, in respect. You mark the spot. Say nothing. On the way back, you feel it. Not dread. Just wait. Like something climbed on your back and decided to ride. When you return, they ask what you saw. You say, nothing moved. And that's enough for now. The rumor comes in just after midnight. Enemy movement. You're half asleep when they nudge you awake. You don't jump anymore. You just blink, stretch your neck, and reach for Greta, like an old ritual. The sky's too dark to read, but bright enough to see shapes that may or may not be real. You settle into firing position, cold belly against colder mud. Every shadow becomes suspicious. Every leaf is accused of espionage. Greta's barrel is cold. That changes nothing. She's always ready. The new guy beside you asks if it's serious. You nod. You don't know, but it's always serious until proven otherwise. The minutes drag. A twig snaps. Then another. Your finger tightens. Your eyes search the dark like they owe it money. Then, a deer. One lonely, confused, entirely non-fascist deer wanders into the line of fire. It sniffs a helmet on the ground, then trots off, bored and blissfully unaware it nearly started a third firefight. The sergeant mutters something about holding your fire. No one responds. We were all about to shoot a deer. Everyone knows it. You stay prone longer than you need to, just in case the deer returns with friends. Eventually, someone laughs. Quietly, it spreads. The tension breaks. Not with a bang, but with a wheeze. You sit back. Greta rests against your shoulder. Your assistant offers a biscuit, still damp. You chew slowly. The taste doesn't matter. The absurdity does. Because in a war like this, even a deer can feel like an omen. There's a mailbag hanging near the mess tent. It's soaked, torn in 2 places. Smells like soup and disappointment. But inside, letters. Dozens of them, all delayed. Some months old, some unopened. You dig through them, find your name, twice. One from your sister, one from someone else. The handwriting's familiar, but you can't place it. You wait until it's quiet. Then you open them like they might explode. The sister's letter is full of news you don't understand anymore. Cousins got married. The dog had puppies. A neighbor died. Maybe you knew them, maybe not. You reread it anyway. Not for the facts, but the rhythm. The sentences a whole, thought out, untouched by mud. The second letter is short. 3 lines, maybe 4. Signed with a name you hadn't heard in years. You fold it slowly, tuck it inside your helmet like it might ward off shrapnel. Later, a guy gets a letter from his wife. Only it's not from her anymore. He laughs, then rips it, then apologizes to no one in particular. You don't offer comfort. You just sit closer. Because sometimes, just sitting is enough. The mud changes, slowly, then all at once. Cold soaks up from the soles of your boots until your teeth rattle with memory. The ground stiffens. The air loses its scent. Even the flies disappear, traded in for frostbite and brittle grass. Your gloves crack when you bend them. Your breath becomes visible, then annoying, then funny again when someone tries to shape it into smoke rings. Water turns to ice. Ice turns to hazard. You learn the art of walking like a man who doesn't trust the earth anymore. Someone tries to make a fire. It smokes. It wheezes. It fails. Everyone stares like it's a metaphor. Food freezes in tins. Coffee becomes cold brew by default. The meat is either jerky or still mooing. Hard to tell. You clean Greta with shaking hands. Oil thickens. Springs resist. She still purrs when the bolt slides forward. Barely, but it's enough. The assistant tries to warm his hands under his arms. Then under your armpit. You shove him. He grins. You let him try again. Because spite is warm too. You try to sleep. The blanket is stiff. Your breath forms icicles on your mustache. You give up and watch the sky instead. Stars twinkle like they've never heard of suffering. The frost comes slowly, but it comes. And the war doesn't pause to let you thaw. The first snow doesn't fall, it ambushes. 1 minute, it's grey sky and dead air. The next, it's a whiteout. Like the whole world got erased by a drunk cartoonist with a paint bucket tool. You blink and your eyelashes freeze together. You breathe and your nose rebels. Your boots vanish into white sludge. There is no ground anymore, just depth. Visibility? You can barely see your own sarcasm. The world becomes muffled, like someone wrapped reality in wet wool. Footsteps disappear, voices vanish. Even artillery becomes a suggestion. You tie a rope to your assistant, partly for safety. Partly because he wandered off last week looking for latrines and came back with a frog and mild hypothermia. The trenches blur into suggestion. Men stumble around like drunk snowmen, swearing into scarves. One guy builds a snowman just to punch it. Therapy, probably. You try to clean Greta. The oil freezes, the bolt sticks. She groans like an old woman being asked to stand up. A resupply sled arrives, dragged by a guy who looks like he lost a bet. It contains exactly 4 cans of beans, a shovel, and what someone insists is fruitcake. You taste it. It tastes like spite and raisins. Someone starts a snowball fight. It ends with a dislocated shoulder and 3 frostbitten fingers. The medic recommends warming your toes with body heat. The assistant takes this advice too seriously. You kick him, gently, but firmly. Nightfall comes, but you wouldn't know. The white swallows everything, even time. You sit in it, wrapped in layers of damp wool and existential dread. Greta's wrapped in your extra scarf, because you care, and also because you need her to work when this storm ends. If it ends, you lose a day, maybe 2. The cold steals hours, numbs the calendar. You stop counting sunrises and start measuring time by rations, socks, and how many layers you can wear before you lose mobility. Your watch stopped 3 days ago, or maybe it never worked. It doesn't matter. Time is for civilians. Your fingers crack when you flex them. Your teeth hum quietly at night, like they're trying to leave your mouth. Somewhere, someone mentions Christmas. You all laugh. It's June, or October, or yesterday. Your dreams make no sense. A horse with your mother's voice, a tank that serves soup, a foxhole full of hot towels. You wake up disoriented, hopeful, then furious. Greta is the only thing that stays the same. You clean her, talk to her, apologize when you drop her. She's the longest relationship you've ever had. The assistant claims he saw a rabbit made of snow. You don't ask questions. He seems happy. That's rare enough to protect. When the lieutenant visits, he says something about movement near the ridge. No one reacts. Movement means orders. Orders mean walking. Walking means regret. You nod, just enough to make him go away. Someone finally marks a new day on the trench wall. It's probably wrong, but it gives the illusion of progress. The snow begins to melt. Not fast, but enough to reveal old tracks. Old gear. 1 boot. No foot. You drink water that tastes like aluminum and anxiety. You swallow it anyway. Because what else is there? You know they're from command because they smell clean. 3 men in crisp coats, shiny boots, and hair that hasn't met a helmet in weeks. They step into your trench like tourists trying to admire a slum without breathing through their mouths. One pulls out a notepad. The others nod thoughtfully, like the mud is a concept. They ask how morale is. Someone says, great, with enough sarcasm to knock a man unconscious. The officers write that down. They ask how the machine guns are performing. You point to Greta, covered in soot, frost, and at least 1 chunk of rat. She looks back at them like she's ready to file a complaint. One officer asks if you've tried adjusting your tactics. You consider throwing Greta at him. Instead, you nod, smile. Say you'll try flanking the weather. They laugh. You don't. They leave behind 2 boxes of ammunition, 1 crate of socks, and a poster encouraging resilience. You use the poster to patch a leak in the trench wall. After they leave, someone finds a chocolate bar in one of the crates. It's shared between 6 men and 1 rat who refuses to be ignored. That night, you dream of the officer's boots. You burn them in your mind, toast marshmallows over them. Greta sleeps beside you. You whisper that you'll never let them clean her. She rattles softly. You take that as love. It starts with a single rat. Bold, brazen, mustache level. You catch it staring at your tin of beans like it's filing a claim. You stare back. There's a moment. A negotiation of sorts. You blink first. By nightfall, there are more. An entire little platoon. Fat from stolen crumbs. Smug from surviving multiple mortar rounds. You name the big one, Sergei. He seems like a Sergei. The assistant tries to chase them off. Sergei stares at him until he leaves. You don't blame him. That rat's seen some things. Someone swears they saw a rat drag a cigarette butt into a dugout like it was planning a party. Someone else claims they're organizing. You consider making peace. Offer them a crust. In return, Sergei doesn't bite your foot in the night. Mutual respect. It becomes routine. You eat, they wait. Like furry ghosts of manners past. You think about home, pets, clean floors, then laugh. Out loud. The assistant looks worried. Eventually, a guy from another unit tries to poison them. Big mistake. They retaliate. Take his gloves, rip holes in his pack, chew his rations. Sergei leaves a message. In droppings. No one talks about extermination again. The rats remain. Watching, waiting, negotiating better terms. In the end, you stop calling them pests. They're fellow survivors. Besides, Sergei's smarter than the lieutenant. You find a scarf. Wool. It smells like mothballs and old perfume. It might have been red once. Now it's a muddy brown with dreams. You wrap it around your neck like you're dressing for an apocalypse-themed prom. It helps. A little. Your neck stops trying to sue you for neglect. The assistant finds a pair of socks with only 3 holes. He wears them like slippers over his boots and calls it innovation. There's talk of a stove, somewhere. A rusted tin box that might produce fire if begged correctly. 2 guys drag it into the trench like it's a war prize. They get it to light. Briefly. Long enough to warm a hand. Singe a glove. Nearly cook a rat. Everyone gathers. Faces toward the heat like it's church. For 5 glorious minutes, there's warmth, laughter, hope. Then it explodes. No one's hurt, unless you count pride and a partially melted canteen. But the moment's over. Gone like all good things. You sit closer anyway. The ember's out, but you pretend. Pretending counts for something out here. That night, you sleep with the scarf wrapped over your head. The assistant snores like a haunted accordion. You don't mind. For once, it's not the cold keeping you awake. It begins with thunder. Not the polite kind. The kind that cracks the world in half. The sky opens like it's been bottling something awful. Rain, but worse. Freezing sheets, sharp as nails, horizontal. You shelter behind Greta. She takes the abuse without flinching. You love her more in that moment than anything with a pulse. Water fills the trench. Fast. It's not a puddle anymore. It's a pool. A moat. You consider naming it. The assistant starts bailing with his helmet. It's adorable. Ineffective. Drenched in futility. You climb onto a crate. Then another. Finally a sandbag thrown. The view's terrible. The mood's worse. Someone tries to laugh. Chokes instead. Your coat weighs more than you do. Your pack sloshes. Your socks, those poor, poor socks, squish with every step like betrayal. At some point, the lightning finds a tree. It explodes. Splinters rain down like angry pencils. You duck. Greta doesn't. Respect. Later, the water stops rising. It doesn't drain. It just accepts you. Like it's decided you belong here now, part of the landscape. You squeeze water out of your gloves. It makes a sound you'll never forget, a sound you'll dream about in therapy. The rain slows, then stops. The world is still again. Then someone slips and falls into the moat. The splash is biblical. You don't laugh. You wheeze. Close enough. The assistant offers to fish him out with a stick. The stick breaks. You turn away, stare at the sky, and wait for it to open again. You smell it before you hear it. It's faint at first, a sweet metallic edge, floating in on the wind like a lie with good posture. You've smelled rot. You've smelled latrine pits during summer. You've smelled Private Barker's socks after 5 days in trench boots. This is worse. You and the assistant freeze. Then move at the same time. You slap the rag over your face. He soaks his with instant coffee. No one questions it. It's the strongest substance in the trench. Gas. No sirens. No bright yellow warnings. Just that one word, whispered by someone upwind. That's all it takes. The trench turns to panic. Men scrambling like it's musical chairs, but someone forgot the music and the chairs. You yank Greta under the tarp. She'll rust, but she'll live. Then it starts. Shells. Not the loud kind, the cruel kind. They hit with a thud, a hiss, like snakes falling from the sky. Your eyes burn, your throat tightens, your stomach flips like it wants out. You curl into the dirt, useless against invisible teeth. There's nothing noble about it. It's animal, desperate, instinct screaming louder than any order. And then it fades. Not gone, just bored. You sit up, slowly. Greta's fine. You're not. 3 men didn't get their masks on in time. One is breathing like a deflated bellows. One isn't breathing at all. The medic moves between them like a priest at a poker table. He says nothing. You all sit there, mouths covered, eyes wide, trying not to taste the air. Even the rats are gone. That's how you know it was serious. You've heard every normal sound war can make. Explosions, shouts, the slap of boots in wet mud. But nights out here, they sing a different tune. It begins with the wind. Just wind, they say. Except wind doesn't usually sound like crying. There's a high-pitched whine some nights. Could be a fox. Could be Private Collins, sleep-talking about his ex-wife again. Hard to tell. One night you hear laughter. Not the friendly kind, not the "we're all in this together" kind. The other kind. The kind that makes your stomach clench and your toes curl like they're trying to escape. The assistant claims it's owls. You suggest the owls need therapy. Then there are the silences. Deep, thick, unnatural. Like the world stopped breathing. That's when you clutch Greta tight. Not because something's happening, but because nothing is. And nothing is worse. Some guys pretend to snore louder to cover the sounds. Others humming. You just lie there and try not to listen. It never works. One guy wakes up screaming. Says he saw a face in the fog. Nobody laughs. Because we've all seen it too. You don't talk about it in the morning. You just eat your bread. Drink your dirt water coffee. Act like it's all fine. The birds return with dawn, chirping like nothing ever happened. Liars. Miracle of miracles. Supply drop. Which means food, technically. There's hardtack that could break a tooth. Canned beans frozen into sculptural disappointment. Meat of questionable origin. Possibly sock. You crack open a tin. The contents jiggle in protest. You eat it anyway. Hunger beats dignity. Greta gets her own ration. Oil and a rag. You polish her slow, gentle, like she's royalty. Or your last brain cell. The assistant shares a biscuit. It smells like glue and betrayal. Still better than the meat. You try to reheat the beans. The fire dies. You eat them cold. Like revenge. Someone down the line gets fruitcake from home, wrapped like treasure. It clangs when dropped. You're not convinced it's edible. They slice it with a bayonet. It resists, fights back. Someone claims it tried to bite. Still, everyone takes a bite. You're not sure if it's dessert or hazing. Sergey the rat shows up, sniffs the fruitcake, retreats in horror. You don't blame him. The sky spits snow. Again, you pull your coat tighter. The assistant wraps his scarf like a burrito. Someone tries to roast a boot for warmth. You eat. You joke. You lie and say it tastes fine. Because that's what passes for morale. You'd kill for butter. You settle for laughter. It's not enough. But it'll do. You wake up with your fingers fused to Greta's barrel. Not metaphorically. Physically. Like some kind of iron romance forged in frostbite. You peel your hand away with a sound that belongs in a horror film. The assistant winces like it happened to him. It's colder than yesterday, which was colder than despair, which was colder than your last date. You consider ranking them, decide against it. The trench walls have frozen solid. Mud turned to concrete. The latrine bucket is now a sculpture. No one goes near it, not even Sergei. Your breath forms clouds thick enough to trap birds. The coffee freezes in mid-pour. The assistant licks it out of the cup like a deranged lizard. There's no movement on the enemy side. They're frozen too, probably. Or they all went home and forgot to tell you. You try to stretch. Your joints protest. Your back makes a sound like someone stepping on a violin, the kind that's already broken. The lieutenant shows up, tries to rally morale, quotes something about grit. His eyebrows are frozen in place, giving him a permanent look of confused optimism. You nod, then blink slowly. He leaves. The assistant suggests building a fire. You suggest building a time machine. He shrugs, starts striking a match against his boot. It doesn't catch. It just weeps. The day passes in frozen seconds. Greta refuses to fire. You don't blame her. You wouldn't either. The assistant builds a tiny snowman on the parapet, gives it a helmet and a stick, names it Sergeant Frost, then salutes him, dead serious. You think about joining in, but your hands are too cold to lift. Lunch is icicles. Dinner is snow. You chew slowly and pretend it's sorbet. By nightfall, everyone's quiet. Not because of fear, just fatigue, of the soul. You tuck Greta in. Yourself too. The wind howls like it's chasing ghosts. You wonder if it's chasing you. You find it in the bottom of a ration crate, wrapped in oil paper, addressed to someone else. You read it anyway. It's from a sister or a wife. Could be either. The handwriting is flowery, nervous. The ink smudged in places. She talks about waiting, about how proud she is, about snow back home and a cat that misses him. You read it twice, slowly, like it might change on the second pass. You don't know the man it was meant for, but you imagine him. Try to see his face. Wonder if he's alive. Wonder if he was ever real. The assistant finds you with it. Doesn't say anything. Just nods. Like he understands the rules of borrowed emotion. You fold it neatly. Tuck it in your pocket. Not to steal, just to carry. Later that day you pull it out again. Not to read, just to hold. You try to picture the cat. Give it a name. Walter, maybe. He seems like a Walter. It helps. That night, the cold feels softer. Not warmer, exactly, but softer. Like the air is holding its breath with you. You dream of a cat you've never met. It curls against your side and purrs like hope. And you don't wake up gasping for once. There's no grand finale, no trumpets, no cheers. Just silence. You wake up to stillness. Real stillness. Not the kind before a barrage. The kind that feels like an empty house. No shells. No shouts. No Sergei. You poke your head above the trench line. No movement. Just frost. Smoke from somewhere far off. Trees that haven't moved in days. Then the lieutenant appears. Clipboard gone. Voice low. He says it's over. Or it might be. No one knows. No one trusts it. But no one shoots. So you wait. Then walk. Just a few steps out. Past the trench. Into the no man's land that's suddenly everyone's land. You see them. Across the way. Enemies. Not aiming. Not waving. Just standing. Like confused reflections. One guy lights a cigarette. Another just sits down. You don't know what to do. So you sit too. Greta lies beside you. Quiet. Tired. Respected. The assistant mutters something. You don't catch it. Doesn't matter. He takes off his helmet. Slowly. Like it weighs more than it used to. You do the same. The sky is blue. You don't recognize it. But you let it warm your face anyway. And for the first time, you let yourself believe that maybe, just maybe, you'll get to see Walter the cat. The quiet lingers like fog that forgot how to lift. Even the birds seem confused, unsure if it's safe to sing again. You shuffle back to the trench, not because you have to, but because you don't know where else to go. It's still there, still ugly, still yours. You sit on a crate and peel a layer of dirt off your gloves. Beneath it, another layer of dirt. The assistant counts his toes like it's a census. All 10, miraculously intact. Greta gets cleaned for no reason. Just habit. You wipe her down like she's sacred. She might be. There's no plan, no orders, no parade. Just the slow realization that you survived. And the guilt that follows. Some men talk. Others don't. You don't. What would you say? You stare at the frost-bitten landscape and wonder what it was all for. Not in a grand, philosophical way. In a very specific, very muddy way. Private Daniels finds a harmonica, plays one note. It sounds like an apology. The assistant builds another snowman. This one has a smile. You add a twig for a cigarette. It feels necessary. Someone laughs. It sounds wrong, like a bone out of place, but no one tells him to stop. You write a letter, not to anyone, just to the air. You say things like, "I'm sorry, and I still dream about the horses." You fold it and tuck it into Greta's barrel. You try to sleep that night, but your body forgets how. The ground's too still. The silence is too loud. Your breath echoes like it's intruding. In your dream, the trench is filled with water, clear water, and goldfish. Daniels is fishing with a spoon. You wake up laughing, then crying. You're not sure which came first. The sun comes up like it always does, like it doesn't know what happened here. You forgive it, eventually. You stand above the trench one last time and say goodbye without saying it. Then you walk away. Slowly. Not because you're tired. Because leaving a place that tried to kill you and failed takes effort. You get off the train with a duffel bag and a limp. Both are heavier than you remember. The station smells like coal and bread. Normal. Unremarkable. It hits you like a brick wall. Nobody cheers. Nobody cries. One man claps, stops halfway through, looks embarrassed. You walk home, or what used to be home. The buildings are smaller, the streets quieter, even the pigeons seem polite. You see a kid in the alley pretending a stick is a rifle. You don't say anything, just nod. The assistant goes his own way, says he's got a girl, or a dog, or maybe it was a bakery. You hug him anyway. You stand at your door for a long time before knocking. Your mother answers. Her hair is whiter, her eyes the same. She doesn't cry. You don't speak. Just hold on for longer than is polite. Inside, everything is where it was, and nothing is the same. The clock ticks louder. The floor creaks in a new spot. Your chair feels smaller. You sleep in your old bed. It's soft. It's clean. It terrifies you. You wake up in sweat. No rats. No gas. Just silence. You hate it. Your father gives you your old coat. You thank him, then leave it in the closet. You walk to the store, buy bread. It costs too much. You pay anyway. The cashier thanks you like you did something noble. You nod like you agree. You pass a schoolyard. Kids laugh and scream. One throws a snowball. You flinch, then pretend you didn't. The postman tips his hat. You nod. He doesn't recognize you. You're not sure you recognize yourself. The cat next door is named Walter. You freeze. He walks over and rubs against your leg. You cry. Just a little. You sleep on the couch that night. It feels less safe, more honest. Greta doesn't belong in a trench anymore, or a museum, or a memory. You clean out the old barn, sweep the hay. Nail the door shut from the inside. It smells like dust and forgiveness. You wrap Greta in a blanket, one your mother knitted. You tuck her into a wooden crate like she's going to sleep. You sit beside her, say nothing. You both know the words wouldn't be enough. Sometimes, on cold nights, you come out here with a cup of coffee. You sit on the floor and talk to her like she's still loaded. You tell her about Walter the cat, about the assistant's bakery, about how quiet the world is now. You tell her you miss the noise. You don't shoot anymore. Not even rabbits, but you oil her barrel once a month, just in case. The barn becomes a sanctuary, a place where mud and steel and ghosts can rest. You plant flowers out front, not for anyone, just because. You hang your old helmet on the wall. Next to it, a photo of the trench. Blurry, crooked, real. You don't need to remember every detail, just enough to know it happened. On the shelf, you place the letter that wasn't yours. Folded, faded, safe. You sweep the barn every Sunday, even when there's nothing to sweep. And when the wind howls just right, it sounds like Greta clearing her throat. You smile, raise your mug, and whisper, "Still got your 6. Some things don't get left behind, no matter how much you try. The scent of burnt cordite still hangs in your memory like smoke on wool. So does the metal tang of canned stew, and the feeling that every snapping branch is something worse. You don't talk about it much, not because you're ashamed, because you've done the math and figured out the average person only blinks when they're confused, and you'd rather not be watched like that. There's a drawer in your nightstand that sticks, not because it's jammed, because you only open it when you've had 2 bourbons and the house is too quiet. Inside, Greta's old cleaning rag, a bent dog tag, a bullet that never got fired, and a childish sketch of a snowman with a helmet, the assistant's idea of humor, which you pretended to hate but secretly folded 3 times and kept. You still wake up before the sun. Your body obeys rhythms it no longer needs. Muscle memory carved from tension. Your mornings are quiet. You walk the perimeter of town like it's still your post. You nod at dogs, salute squirrels, mutter things under your breath that nobody hears. But Walter the cat sometimes blinks like he understands. The assistant runs a bakery now. He gives you a coffee and a bun. Always the same story. Burnt batch, leftover, extra. Always warm, always free. You thank him with a grunt and try not to smile. Back home, the newspaper waits. You read it start to finish, even the classified ads. You underline typos in red. No one sees this but you. It's not about correction, it's about order. And yet, some nights, the silence presses down. You leave the house without locking the door, walk to the barn, sit beside Greta like she's still warm, say things out loud that no one needs to hear. You tell her you're okay. You lie. She forgives you. You tried to toss the uniform once. Couldn't. It's pressed now. Hangs in the closet like it's waiting for orders. You hear people say time heals all wounds. Maybe that's true. Or maybe it just teaches you how to limp with dignity. Walter follows you everywhere now, sleeps at your feet, watches you like he knows too much. Sometimes you whisper stories into his fur. He doesn't flinch. In your wallet, there's a photo that smells faintly of smoke and old paper. You take it out once a year, December 14th. You don't explain it, not even to yourself. And sometimes, when the bakery is closed and the street's gone dim, you say the assistant's name. Not loudly, not for him. Just to remember the sound of trust. It starts with the town council. They want to give you a plaque, maybe name a bench after you. You joke about it, what, the sitting kind of honor. But inside, you're rattled. You show up anyway. Clean jacket, shoes polished, medal on your chest that always feels borrowed. The speech they hand you is printed in 14-point font, like they expect you to be blind as well as broken. You look at the crowd and skip the script. You talk about trenches, rats, frozen fingers. You mention the coffee that kept you alive and the jokes that barely qualified as humor. You don't say Greta's name, but you feel her hand tighten around your ribs. The applause is soft, honest. Some people stand. One kid salutes. You nod like you're used to being saluted. You're not. Later that night, you burn the speech. Drop it in the fireplace like it never mattered. You keep the ribbon, though, tie it around the barn key. It's dumb, sentimental, feels right. You stop carrying the letter, slip it inside a book you never finished, tuck it between chapters like a secret only you understand. You donate the helmet, keep the limp, sell the duffel bag, hang on to the memories you hate because they're stitched to the ones you love. Letting go isn't an event, it's 100 tiny edits. You open the window a crack, just enough for wind, just enough for the night to know you're not hiding anymore. The dreams shift, less screaming, more mundane nonsense. One night, you dream about arguing over a fruitcake recipe with the assistant. You wake up confused and weirdly grateful. And sometimes, only sometimes, you laugh. Real, chest-deep laughter. Not the kind you explain. The kind that just appears like spring after a brutal winter. And that's enough. Spring doesn't ask for permission. One morning, it just arrives. The snow thins. The ground softens. Somewhere nearby, a kid starts mowing a lawn too early and ruins the magic. You sip coffee on the porch. Walter naps like a stone beside your chair. There's no parade, no bugles, just a breeze that smells like damp soil and second chances. You wander to the barn, open the door slow, like Greta might still be sleeping. Sweep the floor, oil the bolt. Sit for a while beside the crate of letters you never answered. One envelope arrives by mistake. Wrong name, wrong house, familiar handwriting. It's a sister again, still searching. You tuck the letter in Greta's crate. You're not ready to throw it away. Out front, you plant 3 flowers. Red, white, blue. You roll your eyes at the symbolism, but you don't dig them up either. The assistant walks by and calls it subtle. He leaves a rye loaf on the steps. Your cane is more for drama than balance, but it makes a good thump on the sidewalk. Kids think you're a wizard. You don't correct them. You visit the trench one last time. Or maybe not the last. The grass is tall. The soil's been disturbed by time, but you can still feel the shape of it beneath your boots. You leave behind the spoon Daniels once used to fish goldfish out of a barrel. No one else would get it. Doesn't matter. You sit. Let the air move around you. Think of nothing, or maybe everything. Then you stand. You tip your hat and walk home. Not quickly, not stiffly, just onward. You pass the bakery. The assistant waves with dough on his hands. Inside your coat, a new letter rests. You haven't opened it. Maybe you never will. For now, the cane clicks. Walter trots along behind. The breeze carries nothing but silence. And that silence, at last, feels like yours. It starts like most mornings. You forget to turn off the porch light. Walter meows like it's a scandal. The coffee takes too long. You sip it anyway. There's a flyer under the door, some local event. Pancakes and patriotism. You don't go, but you keep the flyer. Something about the way the flag's printed crooked makes you laugh. You rake the yard. 3 leaves. It's June. You rake anyway. A neighbor waves. You wave back. Neither of you says anything. That's how it works now. In town, someone's painted a mural on the side of the post office. A flag. A face. You stand and squint at it. It's supposed to be a soldier. You think it looks more like a raccoon in a helmet, but you keep that to yourself. Back home, you eat lunch standing up. Old habit, plate balanced on the counter. Walter gets a scrap. He sniffs, rejects it, stares like you've betrayed him. Later, you oil the hinges on the barn door, sweep the floor again, rearrange the same stack of boxes. Greta gets a fresh cloth across her stock. You hum something tuneless and forget where it came from. The afternoon drifts by. You read a book you've already finished. Fix a drawer that didn't really need fixing. Rewind a cassette twice before realizing it was already at the beginning. Dinner is soup. Same soup. Every Thursday. Not out of tradition. Just because it's easy. You sit on the porch and count the lightning bugs. Try to remember when that used to be exciting. It's peaceful now. Not thrilling. Just enough. Walter stretches. The cane rests across your knees. The breeze carries the scent of something faintly sweet. Maybe someone's laundry. Maybe old memory. An ordinary day. And for once, you let it be just that. It's a Thursday when you finally open it. The letter. You don't plan it. You're just cleaning, drawer by drawer, and there it is again. Still folded, still waiting. You don't sit down, just lean against the counter. The edges are soft now, the ink smudged a little. You recognize the handwriting, not the name. It's not long, 3 paragraphs. Some apology, some confusion, a lot of hope. She's not even sure he's alive. She says she's looked everywhere, traced rumors, asked around. The trail ends here. She signs it with a name you don't recognize, but feels familiar anyway. Then there's a line that catches you. If you are not him, please forgive me. But if you are, thank you. You stare at that line for a long time. You don't cry. Not because you're tough, because you're tired. You fold the letter again. Not neatly, just enough to close it. You don't put it back in the drawer. You tuck it into your jacket pocket. Not to carry, just to remember. The next morning, you go for a longer walk, past the bakery, past the post office, all the way down to the river. You haven't done that in years. The path's still there, a little more cracked, a little more overgrown. The cane helps. Walter doesn't follow today. Maybe he knows. The sun's gentle. The birds too loud. A fisherman nods as you pass. You nod back. It's enough. You sit by the river for a while. Watch the water bend around rocks like it's practiced. Like it's been doing this since before wars had names. You take out the letter, read it again. Then you don't put it away. You let the wind take it. Not because you're careless, because the river already knows how to carry things. You sit there until the clouds roll in. Then you stand. You tip your hat to the river and walk home. Not to forget, just to keep going. You stop setting the alarm. Your body wakes you anyway. The sky is still a bruise when you brew the coffee. There's no reason to rush, but you still move like the sergeant might bark if you're 5 minutes behind. Walter stretches, long and slow, unimpressed. The boots you lace are newer now, but they're broken in the same. You polish them every Sunday, even though no one's inspecting. It's not for show. It's for something else. Something like control. Or maybe memory. You walk the same circuit each day. Down Willow, past the cemetery, up around the church. The neighbors wave. You wave back. Someone new moved in on 4th. Young couple. She waves enthusiastically. He nods with polite confusion. You don't mind. You've been the stranger before. At the diner, they know your name. Know your order. You still pretend to read the menu. Ritual. The waitress slips a cookie onto your plate without charging. You pretend not to notice. She pretends not to care. Some mornings, you sit a little longer than usual. watching the town breathe. Nothing dramatic, just the mail truck grumbling, the old man with the oxygen tank walking his tiny dog, the teenager with blue hair who always looks like they're late to something important. The world feels smaller now, but not in a bad way, like a coat that finally fits. When you head home, you stop by the hardware store, not because you need anything. You just like the smell. Oil, dust, rubber. It's the scent of purpose, or at least of shelves that never move. There's comfort in that. Back at the house, you repair a hinge that doesn't need it. Polish Greta one more time. Sweep the barn floor, though nothing's been spilled. Maintenance, not for the place, but for your head. There's a rhythm to it all now. The kind of rhythm you used to think was boring. But now, it's peace, and that feels heavier than you expected. You still have bad days. Days when you wake to the echo of machine guns that haven't fired in decades. But even then, the coffee's hot. Walter's real. The sun climbs, and you keep moving. She's there on a Monday, sitting on the old metal bench near the cemetery. Hood up, knees drawn tight, backpack at her feet like it's guarding something precious. You don't approach, not right away. Just pass by on your usual route. She doesn't look up. The next day, she's there again. Same spot, same posture. You slow your pace. Still no eye contact. You think about saying something, then don't. Third day, you bring a thermos. Leave it on the bench's far end without a word. Keep walking. She doesn't touch it until you're out of sight. The following week, she's still there. This time she nods as you pass. Nothing big, just a flick of the chin. By Friday, she speaks. You're the guy with the dog, right? You tell her no, just a cat. She grins. First time you see her teeth, crooked but clean. Turns out her name is Elle, short for Eleanor. 17, too smart, too alone. You don't pry, but she offers pieces anyway. Sleeping rough, waiting for her sister. Maybe a lie, maybe not. You start bringing 2 coffees. One for you, one for her. She always drinks hers too fast. Says it warms her fingers more than her stomach. You talk about nothing. The weather. The weird guy who feeds pigeons ketchup packets. You keep the stories light. But she listens like it matters. One morning, she's gone. Just the bench. Empty. The thermos untouched. You wait. A day. Then 2. On the 3rd day, a note's taped under the bench. It reads, "Thanks for the warmth. I'll remember." You fold the note, tuck it in your coat, next to the letter, next to Greta's ribbon. You don't say goodbye. You keep walking. The world used to be loud, explosions, orders, screams. Now it's not. Now it's the creak of floorboards, the sound of water boiling, a cat's sigh. At first, you thought the silence would undo you, strip you bare. But it hasn't. Not completely. Not anymore. You start to notice things. The sound of leaves brushing against the gutters. The way snow settles on your coat without melting. The pause between 2 wind gusts. It's music in its own way. You remember Greta saying once that peace wasn't the absence of noise, but the ability to sit inside the quiet without needing to fix it. You still don't talk about the war, not out loud, but you let yourself think about it now. Not as punishment, just acknowledgement. Sometimes you find yourself smiling at a memory that used to gut you, a bad joke from Daniel's. The way the assistant wore his helmet crooked every morning, like it was intentional. You write things down now, not full stories, just fragments. A sentence here, a word there. Your handwriting's terrible, but it's yours. Walter watches you from the windowsill, like he's grading your penmanship. You hang a new bird feeder, learn the names of the visitors, chickadees, cardinals. One you name Greta, though you know it's just a bird. The days still bleed together, but now there's color in the blur. One morning, you wake to rain. Real, heavy rain. Not a drizzle, the kind that used to mean mud and worse. You sit by the window and let it play the roof like a drum, and you don't flinch. You just listen. And somehow, that feels like a win. You don't drive much these days. The truck's old. Older than some small countries. But today, you back it out slow, tires crunching gravel like it matters. You packed a lunch, not because you'll be gone long, but because the sandwich gives the trip purpose. It's an hour down winding roads. 2, if you count the detour for gas, and a bathroom with a door that doesn't lock. You stretch your legs beside the pump, nod at the teenager inside like you both know this truck shouldn't still be running. But it is. The radio doesn't work. Hasn't for years. But you keep it on anyway. Habit. Sometimes you hear phantom music, or maybe it's just the engine singing off-key. Either way, it keeps you company. You don't think about where you're going until you're halfway there. Then it hits, like a smell from childhood, or a song that hurts. The cemetery. It's not dramatic. No wreaths. No fanfare. Just a small stone under a tree that leans a little too far east. You park crooked. Greta never liked straight lines anyway. You sit in the grass, unwrap the sandwich, share it with the ants. You talk. Not much, just enough. You tell her about the cat, the diner, the girl with the hood and the crooked teeth. You leave out the dreams. You leave out the ache. You trace her name with your finger. The grooves feel colder than the air. It's been years, but it always surprises you how quiet a grave is. On the way back, you take the long route, through the hills, past the lake. You stop once. Watch a boy teach his little sister how to skip stones. He shows her twice, then lets her try. She misses. He cheers anyway. You drive home slower than you need to. The sun's setting, but you don't rush. You're not racing the dark anymore. It's a small thing, just metal and rust. But it leans slightly left now. Time does that. You used to fix it once a month. Now you let it lean. One morning, a letter's inside. No return address, just your name, written in tight, deliberate script. You don't open it right away. You wait until the coffee's brewed, until Walter's had his breakfast, until the light comes through the kitchen just right. Then you sit and read. It's from someone you saved. A name you barely remember, face even less. But the words are clear. Gratitude, wonder. A photograph of their kids, one in uniform. You stare at it longer than you expect. It's folded with care, like it mattered, like you mattered. You don't reply, not because you don't want to, just because you don't know what to say. Instead, you pin the photo above the workbench, next to Greta's ribbon, next to the cartoon you clipped from the newspaper that made you laugh even though you didn't get the joke. The next day, you check the mailbox again. Empty. But for the first time in a long while, you look forward to checking it tomorrow. It starts with the socks. You find yourself wearing 2 pairs, then 3, then the pair with the questionable hole because it still has some life in it. The coffee doesn't steam. It billows. Walter burrows under the blankets like a cat possessed, growling at sunlight and responsibilities. The floorboards protest every step like you're intruding on their nap. You test the windows. Draft check. Result, fail. Outside, the trees are all scandalous angles and bare limbs. You rake leaves knowing full well the wind is just waiting to put them right back where you started. Inside, you reorganize the pantry like a wartime general. Beans in formation, crackers by rank. You check flashlight batteries, then double check with the suspicious intensity of someone who's been burned before. You remember the winter of '93. At the diner, lemonade is gone, replaced by cider. The waitress doesn't ask, just delivers it like a seasonal verdict. It tastes like apples, cinnamon, and the beginning of another long winter. You put off getting the heavy coat from the closet until your elbows begin to personally insult you. Then you give in. The coat is heavier than you remember. So is the mirror. Greta gets a tune-up. Not because she needs it, but because you need something to fuss over. By the end of the week, you've oiled the door hinges twice, rearranged your sock drawer, and added a scarf to Walter's wardrobe. He is unimpressed. The air smells sharper now, like metal, like warning, like the long exhale before the cold decides to move in for good, and somehow you're ready for it. It's not a throne, but it might as well be. You drag the chair 2 inches closer to the window, just enough to make a difference, not enough for anyone to accuse you of rearranging furniture again. The cushions sighs when you sit, so do your knees, so does Walter. You settle in, elbows on the armrests, mug in hand, curtains slightly open, strategically so, enough to see the world, but not enough for the world to see too much of you. Outside, life goes on. The mailman jogs across icy steps like he's training for the Olympics. The neighbor's dog wears boots now. You judge in silence. Kids on bikes. People with grocery bags. One guy with a giant inflatable reindeer that he argues with for a solid 10 minutes. You applaud internally. You start waving. First time, no response. Second time, a nod. Third time, a full smile. You feel like you're back in the game. Sometimes you write things in a notebook you'll never show anyone. Thoughts. Grocery lists. A bad poem about toast. It doesn't matter. Some nights you just sit there, in the soft hush of the room, watching headlights pass like drifting ghosts. You used to watch the front lines. Now you watch squirrels argue over an acorn. Progress. No announcement. No drum roll. Just one morning, there it is. Snow. It's the kind of snow that mutes the whole town. The kind that makes car horns feel like a personal attack. You open the door, just to check. The cold hits you like an unpaid bill. Walter sniffs the doorway and immediately nopes back inside. You stand there, socks to the edge of the welcome mat, watching your porch get swallowed inch by inch. You feel no obligation to stop it. Shoveling can wait. Civilization can wait. For now, the world has been dipped in powdered sugar, and everything feels slowed. You remember another snow. France, 1944. It looked nothing like this. That snow had teeth. This one just has opinions. You sit in the chair, blanket wrapped around your shoulders like a victory cape, coffee in one hand, regret in the other. You drink the coffee. It's quiet enough to hear the flake that lands on the window. Okay, not really, but it feels like it. You let it pile up, on the truck, the railing, your thoughts. You remember Greta's first snow. Her boots were too big. Her gloves didn't match. She danced anyway. Today, you let the snow win. On purpose. You forgot to turn it off. The porch light. It glows like a lighthouse for no one in particular. You almost get up. Almost. Then you don't. Let it shine. Let it pretend it matters. Let it be a tiny rebellion against the dark. Walter stretches. Your leg goes numb. The coffee's cold. The room is still. You used to think being alive meant surviving things. Now it just means noticing things. Like how quiet a house gets at night. How good socks feel. How sometimes even silence has a rhythm. You don't need the light. But maybe someone else does. So you let it burn. Just in case. Just in case. It's faint. Just a whisper beneath the wind. A low, tinny melody from someone else's window, barely making it past the cold. A warbling oldies station, probably. The kind that plays more static than song, but it drifts in like a memory. The kind you don't remember having until something scratches it loose. You pause, because for a second it feels like you're back in the tent, back on a hillside somewhere in Belgium, clutching a cup of something not quite coffee, listening to a radio that barely picked up the BBC, except now you're in your socks, not your boots, and the only thing in your hand is a half-toasted bagel that's threatening to crumble if you even look at it wrong. But the music keeps playing, and with it, your mind meanders. You start doing what you do best these days, staring out the window and narrating the world like it's a movie nobody else bothered to write. A couple walks by, arguing about soup. A man jogs past wearing shorts in 30-degree weather, clearly unhinged. Someone across the street fumbles with their keys like they're defusing a bomb. It's all absurdly ordinary. And somehow, it's perfect. You sit, radio still playing, somewhere between Sinatra and silence. And you wonder, not for the first time, if anyone will remember the machine gunners. Not the generals, not the statues. The ones who lugged the barrels, braced the recoil, and held their breath while praying the belt didn't jam. You shift in your chair. Your back reminds you that yes, they will. Because you do. And for now, the radio plays on. You didn't put it there. But somehow, Walters claimed the green one. The one Greta used to keep folded on the couch, but never actually used. Too scratchy, she said. Too aggressively wool. Walter loves it. He drags it around like a toddler with a security blanket, shedding hair with the dedication of a union worker. Every surface in the house now looks like it was lightly dusted with dog. You let him. Because these days, comfort takes strange forms. Because watching him nest into that blanket like he's building a fortress out of memories feels like the world giving you a small, furry gift. And because some days, it's easier to breathe when something else in the room is still trying. You get irrationally defensive when someone at the diner makes a joke about spoiled pets, as if Walter hasn't served more emotional support than a dozen therapists and one forgettable self-help book combined. You don't say anything, but the next morning you order extra bacon for Walter. Obviously, he accepts the tribute with solemn dignity and returns to the blanket, tail thumping once. You call it a thank you. He calls it payment. Some nights, he presses up against your leg, like he's trying to convince you to stay on this earth just a little longer. You listen. It arrives in a box. No return address. Just your name in cramped cursive, and a stamp so faded it could have come from another century. You open it with a steak knife, carefully, suspiciously, like the box might explode into glitter or regret. Inside, a photograph, 2 men, young, dirt-smudged. One of them is you. It's from the war, one of the ones you didn't even know had been taken. The other man, you have to squint. Then you recognize him. Marquez. He didn't come home. There's a letter, too. From his niece. Says she found the photo in an old trunk and thought you should have it. Said he talked about you. Said he called you the guy with nerves like barbed wire and the aim of a magician. You stare at the photo for a long time. The grin on your face. The smudge on your helmet. The smirk on Marquez like he knew something no one else did. You don't cry. You just sit there, letting the weight of a small piece of paper bend the gravity in your living room. Later, you place it on the mantel, next to Greta, next to Walter's biscuit jar, between memory and miracle. It always does. The snow piles up like it's settling in permanently. The wind howls at the windows like an unpaid landlord. Your knees ache so loudly they deserve their own weather segment. You salt the walkway like it's a ritual. Scrape the windshield with something that used to be a credit card. Pretend you don't feel your hip trying to unionize. Inside, the house feels smaller, not claustrophobic, just more aware of itself, like it's leaning in, waiting to hear you sigh. You count the calendar squares until spring, knowing full well the seasons don't care about ink. You consider starting a puzzle. Then you remember how much you hate puzzles. Instead, you write a grocery list. Coffee, dog treats, new socks, less snow. You cross out the last one. Too ambitious. You make soup that tastes like patience. You rewatch a movie from 1962 and still forget the ending. You go to bed earlier than usual, just so tomorrow shows up faster. You open the window for 1 minute, just to remind yourself the world's still out there. It smells like cold and firewood and maybe, just maybe, change. You don't say it out loud, but spring, you're rooting for it. It used to rattle the door like it was demanding something, like it wanted inside, like it had news. Now, it just pushes, silent, persistent. The kind of cold that gets in through the gaps you didn't know existed. You shove an old quilt against the threshold. Not because it'll work, but because that's what you do now. Small gestures against unstoppable things. Outside, tree limbs scratch at the siding, like they're trying to write something in a language you can almost remember. You think of trenches, then dismiss it. You've earned better memories. Walter doesn't like the wind. He hides under the table like it's made of armor. You pretend not to notice. You're both tired of pretending bravery looks loud. You find yourself watching the thermostat like it's lying to you, because 68 should feel warmer than this, because numbers don't account for loneliness. So you put on the sweater, the ugly one, the one Greta knitted in the wrong color because she refused to check dye lots. It doesn't match anything. It also doesn't care. You shuffle into the kitchen, make tea. Not because you want it, but because the sound of the kettle boiling reminds you that something in the house still works without complaining. The wind keeps pressing, like it's reminding you of all the places you've been where shelter wasn't an option. You listen. You remember. Then you turn up the volume on the radio and dare it to push harder. Some nights you swear you hear voices in the wind. Not ghosts, not quite, just echoes. Of men calling rangers, of laughter behind sandbags, of the impossible silence that came after. But the kettle whistles again. Walter exhales. The cup warms your hands. The wind doesn't knock anymore. And you're okay with that. It's been in the closet for years. Behind the coats no one wears, and the vacuum cleaner that screams like a banshee. You haven't looked at it in a while. But today, for reasons even you don't understand, you dig it out. It's heavier than you remember. The lid sticks. Of course it does. Everything old resents being disturbed. Inside, ribbons fray at the edges. Medals sit in their molded plastic cradles like tiny pieces of someone else's story. Bronze, silver. One with your name engraved just slightly off-center. You line them up on the table like soldiers. You don't feel proud. Not exactly. You don't feel regret either. What you feel is hard to name. It's a word that doesn't exist in English. You think about the moments that earned them, not the glory, the mess, the noise, the smell, the fear so dense it buzzed in your ears like a second heartbeat. You run a finger over the oldest one. The metal is cold. The ribbon smells faintly of thyme and tobacco. There's no ceremony, no anthem, just you and Walter and a kitchen that creaks in the wind. You think of Marquez again, of how he deserved more than a footnote, of how the best men rarely make it to the ceremonies. You gather the medals, not to put them away, but to dust them, to remember, because someone should. The toaster works, which is shocking, frankly. You pop in a slice of rye, expecting sparks, but instead, toast. Glorious, uneven, slightly burnt toast. You celebrate this miracle the only way you know how, by slathering it with too much butter and calling it breakfast. Outside, the ice has started to melt. Not everywhere, but enough to give the driveway that annoying slushy quality that guarantees wet socks if you're not careful. You step out anyway, because the sun is doing that thing where it pretends to care, just a little, just enough to nudge the icicles into slow drips. It's not spring, but it's practicing. You take Walter for a walk. He's unsure about the puddles, walks around them like they're personal insults. You pass a neighbor who doesn't wave but gives you the nod. The universal code for still alive. Yep. You? Yep. At the store, you buy oranges, just because they looked optimistic. You hold them like they're proof. You get home, put them in a bowl. They look ridiculous against the beige of the countertop. Walter curls up near the heater. You make more toast, just because you can. Not everything is broken, and for once, that feels like news worth celebrating. The first crocus punches through the frost like it's got something to prove. It's a stubborn little thing, purple, lopsided, possibly drunk, but alive, and that's enough to make you stare at it for a full 5 minutes, like it's a sermon. Walter notices too, sniffs it, immediately tries to pee on it. You intervene. You explain the concept of hope. He remains unconvinced. Still, you take it as a sign. You clean the windows. Not well, but enough to let more light in. You move a chair closer to the pane, like you're expecting something to happen out there. You fix the squeaky drawer in the kitchen. Organize the tools you haven't used since Reagan. You even open a cookbook. Close it immediately. But hey, progress. At night, you crack the window. Just a bit. Just enough to smell the thaw. You hear birds. Real birds. Not the depressed pigeons that haunt your gutters. Honest to God, songbirds with opinions. It makes you want to write something down. You grab a notepad, then realize you don't know what to say. So you draw a smiley face. It looks like a lopsided potato. You keep it anyway. Signs of life. Some in the yard. Some in you. You almost don't answer. The phone rings during your toast ritual, which is sacred and not to be interrupted. But something about the second ring feels different. Urgent, but polite. It's a voice you haven't heard in decades. Jenkins, from the unit. Sounds older, like gravel in warm water, but alive, and laughing like the last 50 years were just a smoke break. He says he tracked you down through a guy who knew a guy who still owed him a favor. Says there's going to be a thing, a small reunion, informal, no speeches, just old bastards and bad coffee. You don't commit, not right away. You say you'll think about it, but after you hang up, you don't sit down. You just stand there, toast in hand, heart suddenly pacing like it remembers what adrenaline feels like. You imagine the faces, the ones who made it, the ones who didn't. You picture the smell of coffee in paper cups, the sound of boots no longer worn. You look at the calendar, then circle the date. Twice. The toaster pops. You don't eat it. You're already full of something else. It's not heroic. There's no music swelling in the background, no tearful montage. Just you in a borrowed car that smells vaguely like oranges and regret, trying to remember how GPS works. Walter rides shotgun, proud, dignified, wearing the bandana the vet gave him like a badge of office. You drive through towns that look like they've forgotten their own names, past diners that haven't changed their menu since Eisenhower, past fields, past fences, past time itself. The world's bigger than you remembered, but also smaller. You stop at a gas station, buy 2 coffees, one for you, One for Jenkins. You don't even know if he drinks coffee. Doesn't matter. You rehearse what you'll say. Forget half of it. Remember something else. Laugh out loud at a memory that's older than most of the buildings you pass. You find the place. It's a VFW hall. Paint peeling. Flag proud. There's a ramp, a bell, a door you hesitate in front of. Then you open it, and it's warm. Inside, men who look like time travelers, bent backs, cracked voices, eyes that still see what they shouldn't, laughter, claps on shoulders, silence that means everything. Someone hands you a name tag. You write, machine gunner. You pin it on. And for the first time in a long time, you feel exactly where you're supposed to be.